Ciao Juventini of the world, my name is Giuseppe, welcome back on the channel. Yes, we will speak about Calciopoli. After watching the documentary on RAI 3 called Report that talked 1 hour about Calciopoli, trying to rebuild a bit what happened in the biggest scandal of Italian football in 2006, where Juventus was sent in Serie B, where Luciano Moggi was called the big devil of Italian football. Well, they try to rebuild it a bit with, according to them, exclusive new leaked phone calls. Well, I tell you the truth, I was not expecting to hear new crazy phone calls that we never heard before. I was not expecting to learn a lot of new things. Yes, they were a bit, but not really something that made me go live yesterday. I prepared the thumbnail yesterday evening. I was ready to jump live if there was something really interesting to share or something new that I didn't know. But I tell you, we are speaking about facts of 17 years old. We are speaking since 2006. And as a Juventino that wanted to know more, that didn't accept Calciopoli back then, I made a lot of researches. Myself, I was able to speak with a lot of people about Calciopoli. I had also the chance to speak with a friend of me that is living in Belgium, an Italian, that made a fantastic French video called Calciopoli for Dummies, in French, that I had the chance to receive, to dub, and to explain you really the environment of how Calciopoli was born with a lot of phone calls. And it was funny to hear yesterday during Report on RAI 3, a lot of phone calls that were present in the video that I tell you is dated 3 years ago, that were taken back and they showed it yesterday on television. My big hope, because this is what probably hurts the most, was that a lot of anti-Juve fans or not Juve fans opened their eyes on what really happened. Not that they said that Juventus was not guilty, but maybe saying maybe not only Juventus was guilty, maybe also Inter, and not only Inter, but also Milan, Lazio, Fiorentina, Roma, Napoli. Maybe there was a bigger thing that was hidden to us until today, because yesterday we are speaking about a national television channel broadcast that is showing it, not a Juventus channel, not a Juventus YouTuber, but really national Italian television. My hope was that that image of Materazzi in a white suit saying to all the San Siro stadium while they were celebrating that cardboard Scudetto of 2006, ripped off Juventus and handed to Inter by Guido Rossi, and we know all the affinities of Guido Rossi with Inter, with Telecom Italia, the phone call centra, and so on. I was hoping that maybe this time they would be a bit ashamed, saying probably after hearing all these calls, we are not as virgin as we were thinking or were claiming. Well, yesterday you heard a lot of these calls. You heard a new crazy story about Inter that was speaking about crazy, false, fake medical certificates of players from Inter by Mancini that didn't want to let them go to the national team. Irony of everything, he's now the national team coach, and they were faking medical certification papers to not send them there. Looks like it's not the first time that Inter was faking documents like passports, and we all know it about Recoba. Well, these kind of things I didn't know, for example, but yesterday you heard clearly conversation, leaked phone calls between Franco Carraro, president of Federcalcio, and Paolo Bergamo, the designator of the referee at the time, where you clearly see and hear that they are saying, for the sake of God, don't help Juventus. These kind of things, we heard them yesterday. They were clear as crystal clear water, for example. You also heard Cellino, president of Cagliari back then, president of Brescia back then, but at the time, a young president of Federcalcio that said clearly, and even laughing about it, that when he joined the Federazione Italiana Gioco Calcio at the time as a young manager, he found so many crazy things explaining that Italian football back then in 2006 was rotten to the core, and the only thing that they did was taking all these documents that were actually fake documents and so on from all the Italian clubs. And the best idea he had was to burn everything, to put them in a metal box and to burn everything. He was just explaining it with his words that he was doing it. And the day after, when you had La Guardia di Finanza, when you had all the investigators that came, well, they found nothing, because there was nothing anymore to find. Saving, according to him, Italian football. Well, crazy things that you hear there. You also hear, for example, Moratti, back then the president of Inter, that after losing, a few days after losing that Cinque Maggio, the most beautiful Scudetto of Juventus, Cinque Maggio 2002, where Juventus wins against Udinese and Inter lose against Lazio 4-2, we all remember, with Ronaldo, the first Ronaldo, crying on the bench. Well, you hear him asking to have a meeting with the designator of the referee, saying clearly that he was not happy, he was not understanding that the Inter was not winning with all the investments, with the strength of Inter team. And he said, I think there is a complot against Inter from the referee. So having these conversations with referee, asking to be a bit more indulgent with Inter. We hear also Baldini, sporting director of Roma at the time, that was collaborating with the police back then, saying which investigations they needed to follow, which phone calls they needed to hear, and so on and so on. You hear a lot of things, like, for example, something that I didn't know, Inter is now obliged to pay some people, like, for example, the designator of the referees back then. They're obliged to pay them because they were actually listening phone calls, leaked phone calls, and they were absolutely not legal. It was absolutely not legal to listen to them. How did they do it? Of course, Moratti working closely with Telecom Italia, you know, the partnerships and so on and so on. Look, I was absolutely not surprised of what I heard yesterday. I didn't learn a lot. I told you, I made a video about it. You can watch it. That will really explain you what Calciopoli was about, is about. And that doesn't mean that I want to make sure that Luciano Moggi looks like a saint, because he was absolutely not a saint. And that has been said 3 years ago in that specific video. You will discover why Luciano Moggi was penalized, but maybe we can go towards what he said yesterday. He said they wanted to destroy Juventus. They wanted to change the management, the winning management made of Moggi, Giraudo, and Bettega with the coach Capello, and they couldn't do it on the field because Juventus was too strong. Look back at the teams of 2004, 2005, 2006, a crazy strong Juventus that had all the possibilities to continue to win for many, many years. Unfortunately, it has been interrupted, not on the field, but off the field, and what we clearly see is that it has been a political decision by a federation of clubs that went against the power of Juventus back then, with Milan and Berlusconi, with a lot of referees involved. We also hear in these leaked phone calls that referees, they were a bit obliged to do what they had to do, manipulating some results, sometimes not really because of, but you know, like not giving a red card to a goalkeeper. My first game at the stadium watching Inter Juve, a 2-2, where back then it was the first time I was watching Juve in 2004, and you have a penalty given to Juventus, but not a red card given to Toldo. And the day before, you clearly hear conversations between the referee back then and the designator that are saying, you know, if there are some doubts, you prefer and it's better to award the one that is behind Inter than the one that is before. And then you start putting all of these things into context. I tell you, all these kind of things, I already explained them in the video back then. I spoke about it during 3 years. Nobody wanted to listen to me, or at least some Juventini, yes, some other, absolutely not. They didn't want to watch it. So my only hope was that now that it was on Italian national television, some of them would have put that white smoking aside and start opening their eyes, admitting, yes, Italian football was probably really rotten to the core, and now we can't even deny the evidence. Well, what I heard yesterday, what I was reading yesterday from the anti-Juve people is that they don't care at all of what happened. They deny every single leaked phone call where they hear their president from back then, Facchetti, but also hearing the manipulation of Moratti, some people from Milan and so on. They are totally denying. They are denying. They refuse to listen to it. They refuse to say maybe Juve was guilty, as we always stated, but probably also the other ones, guys. I knew it, and I'm a bit disappointed also about the quality of the documentary that was really far from Amazon Prime or Netflix production. Really bad done, with crazy music that at a certain moment went really high. I heard like Far West music. The voices of the one that were speaking were absolutely not great. Again, something done alla italiana. It's good, it's okay, let's try to go for it. Really strange. Anyway, I was expecting some papers to speak about it, and I saw a fantastic way of reporting what happened on that documentary by Tuttosport, with really opening a section on their online site where hour by hour, or actually minute by minute, they were really reporting what was said, so a black on white of what was on television. You saw a Corriere dello Sport that was acting really surprised. Then I'm asking myself, okay, fine, you are speaking about it, you are putting it on your first pages of your Twitter page, but how can you be surprised? How is it possible that Beppe, a simple Juventino, can discover all these phone calls years ago, and you are acting surprised today? Really strange. But anyway, they spoke about it, and then you see a Gazzetta dello Sport that is absolutely not speaking about it. They prefer speaking about crash test from SUV with the 10 most resistant models. They prefer to speak about Padel, the World Padel Tour, but absolutely not about that. Until they were really obliged, in the middle of the night, they go out with a really small tweet saying the backstages, the behind the scene of Calciopoli, between secret dinners, political industrial pacts and wiretaps. But absolutely no shocking title. Really strange for a page from a paper that is going with big shocking titles on their front pages when it's time to accuse Juventus. Anyway, this is what I was thinking about it. Poor production, not a lot newness, and a lot of things were omitted. I don't understand how it's possible to do a mediocre production like that, but I was happy that it was at the light of everyone. Unfortunately, what I was fearing, and indeed happened, was that the anti-Juve world, they don't care about it. In 2-3 days, nobody will speak anymore about it. It is what it is. Tomorrow, there is another important, but really important day for Juventus. Verdict will be known. At least that's what we believe. Will we receive our 15 points back or not is a decision that we are all expecting. They will start the hearings at 2:30 p.m. Italian time. Well, Gazzetta dello Sport is already anticipating that maybe we will not know about the 15 points if they will be given back or not. Maybe they will postpone. Why? Because it's something long that they really have to study, because it would be not fair to give back the 15 points now, or because of the regularity of the campionato of Serie A, of the ranking of Serie A. It's really strange that now they are saying it's a long thing to discuss, to study, and it would not be fair to give back the 15 points because you are again alternating the leagues. While on the 20th of January, when I was out to celebrate the birthday of Geraldine, my wife, with my son, well, in 30 minutes, they decided to punish Juventus not with -9, but with -15, changing and alternating the league for the remaining part and more than 2/3 of the league. Really crazy how things are changing. Anyway, really crazy. Yesterday, John Elkann, he went out with an official letter for the shareholders of Exor, and he continued to appoint something super important that you can see in the letter here, point 2, where he says clearly, black on white, Juventus denies any wrongdoing. There is one thing that I always stated here was, if in 2006 Calciopoli, when John Elkann was appointed after the passing away of Umberto and Gianni Agnelli after Moggi, Giraudo, Bettega were obliged to resign back then because of all the media scandal and so on. Well, he didn't defend Juventus as he could. And watching some documentaries after that, he clearly said it and he really felt it, saying, I was too young. I arrived in a situation that I was not really aware of. Well, today I always stated John Elkann will do everything in his possibilities to defend Juventus. That's what he's doing. Juventus denies every and any wrongdoing. He also spoke yesterday about thanking Andrea Agnelli for everything he did for Juventus. He said, I would like to thank the Juventus board and Andrea Agnelli that acted with responsibility, and particularly my chairman at the time, Andrea Agnelli, who guided Juventus during a transformative and winning era. So really beautiful words, also giving the trust to the new ones that are already starting to do a great job. And we are speaking about off the field. And then he again pointed out how European football is difficult now to compete with that really strong power of Premier League. And what does that mean? That for the people of UEFA that are hoping to actually make Juventus problems with all these ventilation, all the pressure on Juventus, and doing so that Juventus will give up on Super League, I am not sure. Listening and reading the words of John Elkann, I am not sure about that. Anyway, it's a longer video because we have to speak about a lot of things. Yesterday I made myself again angry, again, because if I have to hear from President Gravina that Napoli is an example to follow and totally omitting every great thing that Juventus did through the years, I'm going angry when I'm reading yesterday that they went out with a plan for creating more second teams. We are speaking, teams like the next gen under 23 of Juventus, that they are trying to work on new ideas and actually making sure that the creation of these teams will be find easier for clubs to do because they are lowering the cost to create them. Well, they also say verbally, and you can hear it, non solo la Juve. They try actually that it's not only Juve that can benefit of these second teams. Well, 5 years ago, when they started speaking about this project, there were a few clubs on it, Juventus, but also Milan, Roma. I didn't hear Inter back then at the time, that were really interested and about to create these second teams. They all took themselves out of the project, leaving Juventus alone, that took every single risk to create these teams. Risk financially, because you know that the return on investment is absolutely not great. You have no return on investment. The only return on investment that you can have is a long-term one with these players that are playing more professional football, that one day you have more facility and easiness to create and to bring to your first team. What Juventus, after 5 years, is only having now, with players like Fagioli, like Miretti, like Sule, and all of them, Barrenechea, Ealing Jr., and Barbieri, the last one that played a first game in Serie A, even if it was a loss versus Sassuolo. Well, Juventus took a big risk and added new cost to their structure and was hit also back then with COVID, because when the other clubs had only to care about their first team, Juventus was taking care about first team, the own stadium, because we have enough stadium. It's not because you have COVID that you can't pay back your stadium. So your own stadium, next gen team, but also all your youth academy and the women team. Juventus was hit a lot. Instead of saying Juventus has been an example, and if Juventus was able to do it, you are able to do it yourself, the doors are open. No, they are trying to make it easier for the other clubs so that they can join Juventus. Made me really angry. I finish on another note, guys, probably the last one of today. Yesterday I had the immense honor to speak with Stefano Braghin, the sporting director of our women that is there since day one. He was there even before, but he was on charge of it since day one. Juventus Women 5 years in a row since the creation, winning the Scudetto, bringing Juventus in the top 10 of European football, because these are facts, while 2 years ago we were 33rd. So what they did was incredible, and now I understand how he did it, because yesterday I had the chance to speak 50 minutes with him. We agreed on 30, we stayed 50 minutes live with Stefano Braghin. That said so many great things in a way of speaking that you really say, Mamma mia, this is what I want to hear, this is what I want to follow, this is what is interesting me more than all the off the field things, is really speaking with these kind of intelligent person that are doing something for Italian football, for Juventus Women, for Juventus in general, but also for Italian football. More people like Stefano Braghin, please, that yesterday also said something, and that's maybe the last thing that I want to say before closing. He said how Juventus still continue to work on a project of a second stadium. And that's an important one, guys, because we know it. We spoke about it before COVID. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to postpone it. Well, Juventus didn't give up. With all the attacks that we have from now, political power, and we are repeating the story, Calciopoli, to break down the monopoly of strength of Juventus, and they succeeded. They are trying again today with the plusvalenza case, with the salary maneuver, with attacking Juventus in a moment of difficulty after the Super League. Problems with UEFA, they are trying again. That's the weak point of Juve, let's go for it. Well, Juventus, they are trying to defend themselves about these kind of things, but they are still thinking about the future, because building not only their first stadium, what they were the first in Italy to do, they are already thinking about their second stadium. Be proud, Juventini. Yes, we can speak about the on the field results that are really poor, about Vlahovic that is not scoring, about Allegri that in 2 years was not able to give an idea of football on the field, where Juventus is absolutely not happy about, but there are some things that you can be proud about. And if you are here after 20 minutes of video, I hope you understand the things that Juventus can be proud about. Let me know all your comments. I didn't even ask for it, but if you want to, maximum of like, subscribe to the channel. Grazie, forza, Juve.